Hello, my name is Jill Clark. I've been with the VMD for over 10 years and I'm currently head of the pharmaceuticals team. Prior to that, I spent many years in development roles in the pharmaceutical industry, both in large and small pharma. I will be sharing the VMD's proposed regulatory science strategy, which is being launched for consultation today, the 18th of November. I will be providing a summary overview, but the full document can be accessed from our vmd.gov.uk homepage. We would welcome your feedback and I'll provide more details at the end. So to start, just some background to the evolution of the strategy. The VMD's strong scientific expertise has long been recognised in the lead role that historically we've taken in the assessment of marketing applications at the European level and the contributions we've made to the scientific guidelines prepared by the EMA's scientific working parties. More recently, we've become more global in focus, building partnerships and planning for joint international scientific assessments of marketing applications, as well as developing regulatory capability in less developed countries. At the same time, rapid developments in science and technology have resulted in innovative medicines and novel scientific models and tools, and it's essential that the UK regulatory framework is fit for purpose to allow such medicines to progress to market. The purpose of this regulatory science strategy is to ensure that the VMD keeps abreast of and anticipates future technological advances and novel approaches in order that we are well equipped to address the scientific and regulatory challenges that will arise over the next 10 years. The objectives of the science strategy are to ensure that the VMD maintains a modern regulatory framework for veterinary medicines underpinned by good science, to support a flexible regulatory environment to enable the VMD to respond rapidly in emergency situations with a proportionate approach to managing risks, to ensure that assessment approaches can be adapted to take advantage of scientific developments, to ensure that the VMD's scientists have the knowledge and skills to deal with current and future challenges and innovations, to encourage knowledge exchange with other regulatory bodies, research communities, pharma partners, DEFRA and other government departments, to develop a network of external specialists to provide advice and training, and to identify research needs. We have identified 6 strategic goals. Firstly, enabling access to novel therapies and technologies. Secondly, addressing emerging health threats. Enabling availability of veterinary medicines. Strengthening a life cycle approach to benefit risk assessment. Facilitating the use of novel scientific models and tools, and underpinning all of these, ensuring access to high-quality regulatory scientific expertise. So in terms of our first strategic goal, rapid advances in biotechnology are leading to the discovery and development of innovative medicines. The first veterinary monoclonal antibody product was authorised in the UK in 2017, and in the same year the first DNA plasmid vaccine was authorised. Then in 2019, 2 allogenic stem cell products were approved. However, the lack of a specific regulatory framework for these types of products has been problematic. We've identified 2 main areas of focus: the broad area of novel therapies and a discrete specific area of allergen immunotherapies. Novel therapies are not easily classified as either immunological or pharmaceutical medicines. This means that a more tailored regulatory approach is required to deal with the unique challenges. We have seen a significant increase in the number of development candidates that would be described as novel therapies, and this trend seems set to continue. Potential areas include novel therapies based on bacteriophage, novel delivery systems such as nanotechnologies, RNA vaccines, CRISPR gene editing and gene therapy. So to support the development of novel therapies, the VMD will look to coordinate horizon scanning activities, prioritising those areas where the most significant activity is taking place and identifying areas where scientific guideline development is most urgent. This will be taken forward through the VMD's Novel Therapies Group. We will review the need for reform of the regulatory framework for novel therapies to help facilitate the development and progression to market. We will increase the availability of scientific and regulatory guidance. We will review and optimise the VMD's support structures to ensure companies are able to access scientific and regulatory advice services. And finally, we will identify and build on our own expertise in key areas and establish and maintain a network of independent advisors able to support the VMD with its future work. Allergic diseases are growing in importance in veterinary practice, and allergen immunotherapy extends treatment options available for companion animals. But applications for marketing authorisations present scientific and regulatory challenges. Firstly, allergen products may be derived from diverse natural sources, leading to issues in terms of quality control. Secondly, although field studies in sensitised animals are considered to be the most appropriate means to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of specific immunotherapy, the complexity of treating individual animals can give rise to difficulties in study design and interpretation. This is possibly the reason why there are no allergen immunotherapy products authorised in the UK. This is clearly an area of unmet clinical need, and under the VMD Special Import Scheme, allergen products feature in the top 10 of imported products. So to facilitate the development of allergen immunotherapies, the VMD will look to develop a fit-for-purpose UK regulatory framework to facilitate submissions of applications for allergen products, elaborate guidance on data requirements, including specific guidance on use of recombinant DNA technology, explore the advances that have been made in the human field and the potential application to veterinary medicine, and provide additional support to industry throughout the development life cycle. So moving to Strategic Goal 2. Climate change and increasing international movement of animals and animal produce have heightened the threat of disease incursions into the UK, as evidenced by the outbreaks of Schmallenberg and blue tongue virus infections in recent years. The emergence and development of disease outbreaks may be rapid, and so the VMD needs to be proactive and ready to respond as and when necessary. We also need to maintain an awareness of emerging diseases at an early stage. We already allow expedited response to emerging disease situations under an exceptional circumstances provision. This allows applications to be submitted without the complete quality, safety or efficacy documentation. The data package would then be completed using data from use of the product in the field. We will look to review how emerging diseases have been dealt with historically and the effectiveness of previous provisional marketing applications. We will consult with stakeholders about the potential difficulties faced when developing medicines for emerging diseases and how these might be overcome. We will review existing legislation to identify areas where improvements may be required. We will review current guidance on the exceptional circumstances provision and consider how this can be improved. And we will enhance the existing systems for monitoring the emergence of new diseases and establish a risk rating which would then be linked to guidance on reduced data requirements. And finally, we will identify research gaps relating to the development of new diagnostics, vaccines and pharmaceuticals. Strategic Goal 3 is about enabling availability of veterinary medicines. An appropriate range of medicines to prevent and treat diseases is critical to ensure animal health and welfare and protect human health. However, availability of medicines in some areas could be significantly improved. The VMD already has a number of initiatives to improve availability, including the prescribing cascade, which includes the special import scheme, and the exceptional marketing authorisation schemes. Now, these include a limited MA to help fill an existing therapeutic gap and where the product is not expected to be sold in vast quantities, and a provisional MA to help address an urgent situation. Both of these may be granted on the basis of a reduced data package. However, there still may be opportunities to review the regulatory framework to see whether progression to market of additional or alternative veterinary medicinal products can be encouraged. We are often asked to provide advice on whether a particular healthcare product falls within the regulatory framework for veterinary medicines. Alternatively, a product might fall within the remit of the Health and Safety Executive if it's considered to be a biocide, or the Food Standards Agency if it's determined to be a feed additive. Others fall outside all of these definitions and may be marketed in the UK without regulation. Although these products may not fulfil the usual requirements for a marketing authorisation, they could have other benefits, such as improved safety compared to conventional medicines. Others may not have any obvious benefit to the animal, but may have a positive impact on the environment. This would include administration of chemical inhibitors to cattle to suppress methane production and help meet targets of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The VMD will consider how these products might be regulated with the aim of improving availability whilst also ensuring quality, safety and efficacy. This would provide end users with better guidance as to the expected benefits and potential risks. The VMD will look to identify a list of product types which might benefit from a new regulatory framework. Review advice given by VMD, HSE and FSA and consider whether further collaboration is required. Review how veterinary and human borderline products are regulated in other jurisdictions, including the permissible claims, and consider whether joint regulation with other veterinary medicine agencies might be appropriate to improve availability of borderline medicines. And finally, propose and consult on options for potential regulatory frameworks for each product type and the required standards. The UK's 5-year National Action Plan highlights plans to work with industry to deliver a sustainable supply of high-quality, new and alternative preventative medicines and treatments. Alternatives to antimicrobials encompass a wide range of therapeutics that could reduce antimicrobial consumption by either preventing, treating or reducing the risk of bacterial infection. Some products also bring additional health benefits such as increased resilience to disease. It is important that we have a clear and consistent regulatory position, providing scientific and regulatory advice in appropriate areas and guiding legislative decision-making. So the VMD will look to identify regulatory strategies that will increase the development, availability and use of alternatives to antimicrobials. We will look to establish a clear pathway to market for the major classes of product. We will clarify that some products may be eligible for a limited marketing authorisation where the market is anticipated to be small, and that might be the case for some vaccines. And where necessary, we will provide additional clarification of the data requirements and claims that may be appropriate. We will improve clarity regarding the borderlines between the UK VMRs, the biocidal product regulations and feed additives regulations to provide clarity as to which regulations a product will fall under. Strategic Goal 4 is about benefit risk assessment. Benefit risk assessment is a tool to support decision making and should be a consistent and transparent process that is performed throughout the life cycle of the medicine. The validity of the benefit risk assessment is dependent on the quality and quantity of the data available and may rely on interpolation if data sets are limited or interpretation of large data sets which might be diverse and conflicting. When risks are identified, suitable risk mitigation measures are required. These may be inclusion of safety warnings on the packaging, right up to post-marketing risk management plans. In all cases, communication of risk needs to be tailored to the appropriate audience using suitable language and taking account of differing levels of knowledge. We feel that review of the benefit risk methodology is essential to ensure that the approach is fit for purpose and to identify whether improvements can be made, either through new approaches or refinement of existing ones. And as such, we have identified 5 subtopics, and I'll be going through each of these in turn. The first area is about improving the consistency and transparency of benefit risk assessments. Benefit risk assessments for veterinary medicines are usually performed on the basis of a qualitative approach that relies on expert judgment. Adopting a more quantitative approach is not straightforward because of the diversity and complexity of factors, including risks to the target animal, the user, the consumer, and the environment. At the moment, assessment of benefits focuses on benefits to the target animal. Other benefits, such as positive impacts regarding public health or the environment, could be considered, thus promoting a more holistic assessment of the benefit-risk balance. So to improve the consistency and transparency of benefit risk assessments, the VMD will look to investigate the suitability of alternative benefit risk methods, investigate whether a broader range of benefits may be incorporated into the benefit risk assessment, investigate potential for improvement of communication of risks and risk mitigation strategies, and consider appropriate methodologies for exceptional circumstance and limited market applications given the reduced data requirements. The second area in the benefit risk arena is to improve signal management in the analysis of pharmacovigilance data. The safety data submitted pre-authorization is often limited, being based on relatively small studies. The evaluation of safety signals post-marketing provides regulatory authorities with up-to-date information on a medicine's risks and the opportunity to assess if the benefit risk is still favourable. Signal data are obtained from surveillance of adverse event reports, as well as literature reports and other sources, including social media. In addition, submission of adverse event data is increasing year on year. Signal management enables analysis of large volumes of data and can detect, prioritise, validate and evaluate the risks associated with use of veterinary medicine. Where necessary, regulatory action can then be implemented to minimise identified risks. So to support the use of signal management, the VMD will look to develop working relationships with other regulatory agencies, particularly those who have experience in handling and interpreting large volumes of data. We will look to evaluate methods and processes used for signal management and develop best practice guidance and criteria. We will research and develop expertise to validate different statistical data mining methods. We will increase in-house knowledge of pharmacology and pharmacoepidemiology, and we will enhance pharmacovigilance capability by developing and implementing IT solutions for data analysis. There is growing concern regarding the impact of pharmaceuticals in the environment, both in relation to their potential effects on ecosystems and effects on human safety. However, at the moment, under veterinary medicines legislation, there is no requirement for routine surveillance of drug residues in the environment, and the reporting of environmental adverse events is rare. In order to be assured of the environmental safety of veterinary medicines, more research and guidance are needed. So the VMD will look to develop and extend working relationships with other government agencies and determine how they deal with environmental infringements. Investigate the benefit-risk balance for compounds of environmental concern, such as endocrine disruptors, PBTs and antimicrobials. Research and develop guidance on the risks of secondary exposure from household contamination and exposure of bees and other pollinators from topically administered medicines to pets. Evaluate the need for post-authorization environmental monitoring programs for those compounds considered to be a high risk to ecosystems, and develop guidance on response to environmental and residues reports. A further benefit-risk topic is about strengthening risk management and risk minimisation approaches. A veterinary medicine is authorised based on data generated on a limited population of animals in a protected scientific environment. It is accepted that not all risk will have been identified at the time of authorisation, and many will only be discovered or fully characterised post-authorisation. Increased use of risk management plans could allow novel products and those authorised under exceptional circumstances to gain more rapid market access, whilst the missing information on the safety profile are generated in the wider population. Risk management plans are a potentially valuable tool, routinely implemented for human medicines. However, more experience needs to be gained in the veterinary field and how they may be used to identify and minimise risks. So the VMD will review how risk management plans and risk minimisation measures are planned, implemented and regulated in other agencies, drawing on the experience of colleagues at the MHRA. We will further investigate the potential for the application of risk management plans in the veterinary field, with a particular focus on innovative products and areas of unmet clinical need. And we will develop new guidelines and required standards for post-authorization data collection and analysis. As we've heard, ongoing benefit risk evaluation is a core activity of pharmacovigilance and is based on accumulating evidence during the life cycle of a product. Now that can be from PSURs, signal detection, risk management plans, scientific literature and even social media. Assessing the causality of the risk is the core aspect of the benefit risk assessment and depends upon the nature and the amount of evidence supporting a hypothesis. In the future, non-conventional sources of data, including big data, could be an important part of the benefit risk assessment. To allow us to consider utilising big data in post-authorisation benefit risk assessments, the VMD will look to consult other organisations and institutions, such as poison centres and insurance companies, to understand how big data are handled in other scenarios. We will undertake work-sharing assessments and utilise expertise in other fields, and we will clarify industry requirements in legislation and/or guidance. Strategic Goal 5 is about facilitating the use of novel scientific models and tools. Pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic modelling, an application of mathematical and statistical methods, can be used to characterise and predict the behaviour of a drug in vivo. These methods also help replace and reduce the use of animals in experimental studies. So we have two threads here, one about 3Rs and one about modelling and simulation techniques. Our intent is to increase application of pharmacological methods to support 3Rs. Some 3Rs methodologies, such as BCS biowaivers and PK/PD modelling, have already been incorporated into scientific guidelines. We want to encourage applicants to not only consider the principles of 3Rs during the design phase of studies, but also to develop new 3Rs methodologies. In addition to animal welfare benefits, these approaches will reduce the costs associated with the development of medicines, with the potential benefit of increasing availability. So the VMD will review current scientific guidelines and identify opportunities for 3Rs implementation. We will promote the use of new 3Rs methodologies by providing greater clarity through the development of new guidelines. We will interact collaboratively with industry to focus development in areas for 3Rs. We will build relationships with experts in the relevant fields. We will explore opportunities for funding R&D projects related to the development of 3Rs methodologies. And we will offer scientific advice for applicants relating to the acceptability of their proposed method. Models are simplified representations of a system, and although they are subject to limitations because of the potential uncertainties with the sample data, they can be successfully used to predict outcomes under different assumptions. In addition, statistical modelling and simulation techniques allow efficient use of imperfect empirical datasets or big data. As a result, various modelling techniques are already used as part of the decision-making process during the authorisation of veterinary medicines. So although the potential benefits of using models is clear, it is important that regulators and stakeholders have a good understanding of how they are developed and validated if they are to be more widely used and accepted in the regulatory arena. Therefore, the VMD will look to identify appropriate simulation and modelling techniques and collaborate with experts. Firstly, to gain a greater understanding of these techniques, to see if they can be made more accessible and transparent, and to evaluate their merit for medicine authorisation. We will also look to interact with industry to encourage the use of new modelling techniques to make better use of data and reduce the number of animals used in testing. We will investigate the potential to incorporate big data and novel data sources into the current marketing authorisation framework. And we will ensure that assessors are fully trained and that appropriate guidance is provided for both regulators and industry. Our final strategic goal is about ensuring access to high-quality regulatory scientific expertise. As we've seen, innovation in veterinary medicines to prevent and treat disease is developing quickly. And this means that as scientific assessors, we need to continuously develop our skills and expertise, identify and fill any knowledge gaps to be able to successfully deal with these new types of veterinary medicines. The VMD is determined to ensure that we maintain our scientific expertise and capability, and continue to provide high quality scientific advice and critical review of applications for new veterinary medicines. And this final strategic goal underpins all of those that have been discussed previously. In order to do this, we will strengthen existing links between the VMD and other regulators and leverage collaborative links with new global regulatory partners. This will provide access to a wide range of scientific assessors with different experience and expertise and allow mutual sharing of knowledge. It will provide exposure to different types of medicines and products to maintain and extend our expertise. It will enable mutual scientific peer review, and it will help us identify better, smarter ways of working. We will continue to attract and retain highly qualified and skilled staff. We will do this by providing training and professional development opportunities. We will offer secondments and experience postings to external organisations to gain expertise and grow networks. And we will develop a network of independent scientific experts and establish an efficient mechanism whereby we can procure advice in a timely manner. Finally, we will work with academia to address emerging regulatory scientific issues, ensuring the focus of the VMD's R&D programme remains current and is used to commission work on scientific questions of greatest importance and relevance. So this has been an overview of our draft regulatory science strategy, and this marks the launch of our consultation period, which runs until 31st of January. The full document can be accessed from our VMD homepage, and we would very much welcome feedback on whether you agree with our priorities or you have suggestions for other areas where we should focus our efforts. The plan is to finalise and publish the strategy by the end of first quarter next year.
The VMD welcomes any questions that you might have. To ask your questions, please go to www.slido.com and use the event code 96607. Slido will be open for your questions until Friday the 20th of November. Responses will be published to your questions by Friday the 27th of November. If this presentation hasn't met your accessibility needs, please email director.support@vmd.gov.uk. Thank you.